You don't create a bonsai overnight. This is actually a process. It takes a little bit of time every single time you work on the tree. So don't worry if you don't have the perfect tree today. You might not have it tomorrow, not even next year. But there will be a moment and you wake up and you look at your trees and you're like, hang on, those are actually pretty darn good. I'm still waiting for that moment myself. I've just finished wiring out this beech tree, and in this video about the wiring out I'll touch a couple of subjects. First of all, why would you wire a deciduous tree such as this beech in the middle of summer? I'll show you the back of the tree because I had it originally the wrong way around. I'll tell you a little bit about the history of this tree, and of course I'll tell you why I'm sitting in the shed rather than outside even though it is summer. Hey, welcome, this is Jelle growing bonsai and we're looking at a beech today. And it is very windy. I'm expecting rain actually to hit us soon, but that's what middle of summer is for, right? It's nice temperatures, everything has been growing really well. And this beech I got from a hedgerow, I think 2 years ago, maybe 3 now. And last year I made a video of this tree, how I did the initial styling. And this spring I pruned it back, I thinned it out, and now it is pushing again. This bud is swelling, more growth is coming. You'll see that some of these leaves, they're damaged by sunlight after the initial thinning out in spring. And some of these leaves here at the end, they were hit by aphids. They also don't look all that well. That's not so important, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to take out the bigger leaves on the inside and on the outside that block the light from coming in. That will help establish new buds for next year. Then I want to wire these out, position them so that they're set for next year. You can see here I have a tension wire which I put in place. I think the storm is upon us now. Now the rain is here. I'm going to have to do the rest of the work in the shed, in the dark. I'm very sorry. Right, there I am again. Now what we were talking about. I was talking about how I would like to style this tree. Now if you look at a beech naturally in the wild you see the lower branches really hanging down in a swooping style. Something like this. And if you look at the tree, the whole movement of this tree, it's the trunk coming up, the top of the tree sitting here, and this is going to be there for quite short. On the other side of the tree, you see the branches swoop down all the way along the trunk, forming a very low canopy. So basically the length of all the branches is pretty good. And what we see when we look at the rest of the tree, these leaves, like this sun-damaged leaf, this is not as effective as the healthier leaves. So I'll start with taking some of these out, creating lots of light in the crown. Now if you look up here, there's another very big leaf. Also this one, if I take this out, a lot of shading in the canopy is gone, and it will stimulate the buds on the inside, as well as allow for the inner leaves and the inner branches to stay alive. So gently, one by one, I am thinning out the canopy again, to ensure light enters the inside of the crown. So in here as well, just remove individual leaves from the crown that provide a lot of shading on the inside. Then, once I have this all thinned out, of course I can start looking at wiring things. So right now it is just opening up, keeping inner buds and inner branches alive, active for next year, so that in winter I can prune back further. I'm not going to do a complete wiring of the tree with every single branch. As said, the main branches I'll do with tension wires, and these thinner side branches that have grown up, I'm just going to give a gentle shape. I'm using fairly thin aluminium wire, and on top of that I'm applying it very loosely on purpose, because the branches will swell up quite a bit over the rest of summer. And this way they can stay on probably until winter, and in winter I can check everything, adjust, rewire. But for now I'm just giving it a basic shape with a very loose wire. This is how you can reduce the risk of scarring. The reason why I want to wire now is because the branches are still very supple. They've not lignified yet. So the branches are not woody. Everything that has grown this year is still soft and pliable. But over the next couple of weeks it will start to lignify more in preparation for winter. So these set in this position quite well. If you wait until next year, when it has all lignified, it takes also a lot longer to change the shape. Now, of course, I need to add tension wire to make sure I position it well. Now, as said, I'm using fairly thin wire and I'm wiring it fairly loosely to avoid the wire biting in. And because the branches are so supple, I don't need to use heavy wire, so this reduces a bit of the pressure on the branch. Make sure that you put little bends roughly at the position of each leaf. This is a position where a new branch can grow, and side branches on the outside of a curve just look more natural than when they're on the inside. Now this is a branch that actually sits in front of the main trunk, so I'm going to add a little bit of wire here to bend it sideways. Basically, all you do is just gentle wire, looping it around and then connecting it to one of the side branches to make sure that that's a continuing line. Ideally, the looping is in the same direction as the original looping. And now if I did choose the right wire, I can just bend it sideways, like that. And now the main branch goes sideways, and this small one I can also bend a little bit sideways. And this leaf now needs to come off, because that is just shading out the side branch. Just like that. The first branch that we wired and put down with the tension wire, and the second branch that we just wired out, basically form one universal pad. Now here, there's another branch. This is a side branch from this main branch, and I can wire that out to come over. This one comes down a little bit, and that way you fill the canopy. This is the continuation from the trunk, and this will go down. And this branch here needs to come a lot down, so I needed to use a tension wire. In fact, here there are already too many buds, and I need to thin. I need to take one of these three out. Open it up a little bit more, and then find some wire. And in this case, because I want to change the complete shape, I'm going to start all the way at the beginning, at the base of this side branch. Loop that around at least once. A little bit more is preferred. Also here, try to keep it nice and loose. It doesn't help positioning, but it does reduce the scarring. And the second half of summer is known to create a lot of thickness growth. And here again, try to loosely coil the wire around the branch, giving it space to grow all the way to the end, following the main branch. And the side branches I can later on wire out as well. Always try to avoid putting the wire over the buds, always between the buds, so that if a branch starts growing, it isn't malformed by the wire. There we go. A little bit more down, so that the tip can come up in the natural way of a branch growing. Now these side branches, as said, I can wire out. I'm going to remove this leaf as well, so there's a little bit more space and visibility. I hope you do see how the angle of these branches here is different from the branches there. This is the natural tendency of a beech to grow up in the air. Bringing the end down gives you a more mature looking shape. Young trees grow up, old trees have hanging branches. So that's what we try to do here. By wiring in summer, the young branches that are not lignified yet are much easier to position. They will lignify in this position and therefore don't have the tendency to come back up again. And wiring only needs to stay on for a couple of weeks to months. And by winter, it's all set in place. There's a junction here in the branch, right? And I want to keep both of these branches, so I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to continue onto the thickest for 1 or 2 loops. That way, whatever I wire or whatever I bend here affects the rest of the branch. Now I take a thinner wire, I place it underneath, parallel to the thicker wire, and I just continue looping, just like that. As said, I want to keep it a little bit loose, so I shouldn't do this so tightly. This is the downside of trying to explain something on camera while doing it. And here the same thing. Now, at this point, you have wired the main branch. So you can say I'm going to just bend this, but you can move these side branches independently from it and position those the way you want to. Now basically all I need to do is wire out another 50 branches and then this tree is all set. This might take me, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes all in all. And without the camera running, I'd probably do it in 20-25 minutes. And then it's done again for a couple of months. But in fall, I'm going to have to look at this tree again, maybe in spring. So it is a process. It takes time, and it takes a little bit of time every single time you work on the tree. And accumulated over the months, the years, you slowly start to see an improvement of the tree. And it starts to look more and more like a nice ramified tree. Now, one of the questions I of course have is whether this is actually information that is useful and new, whether you're learning something, and of course, have you subscribed to the channel? Because I do try to bring out a video every week. It's always important to look for the branch structure that you're building. I'll remove 2 leaves here so you have a little bit of a better view. Here you have 1 branch, 2 branch, and a 3rd branch on 1 spot. So I only want 2 branches at any one given place because it leads to less swelling at these connections, and of course it's easier to wire. Now the one here in the back has 1 side branch, 2 side branch and the main branch, so this is a nice branch to put horizontal. So I'm now looking for something that I can put more vertical as a continuation here of the main trunk, which means that the one in the middle here is going to go. Right, this is going to sound a little bit embarrassing, but I flipped the tree around because this is actually front, that is the back. But that is also a good thing. The tree should look good on all sides. You can tell just a few more branches here that have not been wired. Everything else is layered nicely. The top has been positioned. This branch should now come a little bit forward because it is the front on this side. This I can put down a little bit more to keep view there. But all in all, the tree is developing nicely. I'm going to apply the last little bits of wire. Keep in mind the tree has been wired before, so I'm not per se wiring the whole branch. I'm only wiring the pieces that I now want to position. Parts that don't need positioning don't need wire. It is still in a plastic container. It is still sitting in the development corner of my garden. It still is not something that I would call a bonsai. It is, however, showing potential. It is developing. It's getting somewhere, but it will be another 2 or 3 years before this plant has enough character and enough ramification, enough refinement to say, okay, this is nice enough, and I would start using the term bonsai. Enjoy every single step of the way. Don't say my tree needs to be done tomorrow, but just accept this is a process, it takes time. And you're not going to be done within the next couple of days. If you do that, the process, the journey, becomes more enjoyable. And that is in the end why I do bonsai. I don't know why you do it, but I do it because I enjoy the process. I enjoy seeing the trees every year get a little bit better. This one a little bit to the back. These extensions also a little bit long. And then wire this out into the back. And then I think I'm done with this tree for today.